Can a pilot decide on his own Ferrari, regardless of results, internal policy, or media pressure? Well, that is exactly what, according to the Italian press, Lewis Hamilton has just secured, and until 2027. In a world as hermetic as that of Formula One, contractual negotiations are usually a land full of confidential clauses, conditioned bonuses, and complex renewal mechanisms. However, what Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton have agreed for this new stage to break with that usual pattern. According to leaks from the Gazzetta dello Sport and confirmed by F1 Insider, the signed contract not only covers two 2025 and 2026 seasons, but includes a very uncommon provision. The possibility of extending it to 2027 remains exclusively in the hands of Hamilton. That is, there is no condition of results, there is no approval by the directive, and mutual consensus is not required. It is enough that the pilot wants to continue and Ferrari must comply with it. This type of contractual armor is extraordinarily rare in Formula One modern. Normally, when an optional extension is signed, it is the team that retains the power to activate it. We have seen it in recent cases such as Max Verstappen contracts with Red Bull or Charles Leclerc with Ferrari, where renovations were linked to performance objectives, classification in the championship, or even explicit approval of the dome. Here the equation is completely invested. The power passes from the constructor to the pilot. This means that what happens on track is either a year of successes or crisis. Hamilton would have guaranteed his seat if he decides. This contractual play is not the result of chance or a simple salary negotiation. It responds to a strategic vision of John Elkann, president of Ferrari, who has proven willing to break molds to attract and retain a pilot such as British. Elkann has not only offered a more flexible and sure contract than the standard, he has also supported that bet with a tangible internal commitment. Sources close to the Scuderia reveal that the president has promoted the elaboration of technical documents detailing which areas of the team should evolve to maximize Hamilton options, from changes in brake management and suspensions to modifications in communication between engineers and pilot. Maranello's own environment describes this relationship as a follow-up, as a lighthouse in the middle of the storm. A leadership that is not limited to sports, but sends a blunt internal message. Ferrari is willing to shape part of its technical and operational structure based on the needs of its new signing. This implies a deep cultural change for a historically jealous team of its internal hierarchy and its technical independence. The result is that, for the first time in decades, Ferrari has yielded a critical part of the control of a pilot. It is not just about giving it a competitive car, but also guaranteeing the safety and time necessary for its adaptation to complete without the constant threat of an early way out. In a championship where decisions are made career and contracts can break with a call, Hamilton has achieved a stability position that very few have enjoyed in the modern era. And that stability, combined with their experience and reputation, can become a double-edged sword, the key to a historical resurgence, or a difficult load to manage if the results do not arrive. The paradox that Lewis Hamilton lives in his first season with Ferrari is as striking as worrying. On the one hand, it has one of the strongest and most advantageous contracts that any pilot has signed in the modern era of Formula One, with armor that guarantees control over its immediate future. On the other, its initial track performance is far from the image of a 7-time world champion. After 14 great awards, the British has not managed to get on the podium in a main race, an unprecedented situation in his career. Charles Leclerc, his partner and internal reference, surpasses him by 42 points in the general classification, with a forceful balance in statistics, 10-4 in classification sessions and 11-2 in races ending ahead. This lag is not the result of a single problem, but of a series of accumulated factors that have turned their adaptation into a longer and more complex process of what is expected. One of the most marked elements by Hamilton himself is a recurring technical failure in the rear of the SF25, which would have persisted for at least 3 races, penalizing more than 1/10 of a second by return. In a sport where the differences between glory and anonymity are measured in thousands, wasting that time constantly is devastating. To this are added structural problems of the car that affect the general balance, especially in the braking and curve entrance. Mercedes's jump to Ferrari has also involved a radical change in the hardware with which he works. After 15 seasons using carbon industry brakes, Hamilton has had to readjust its sensitivity and technique to the Brembo system. Something that, although it may seem a lower detail, significantly modifies the braking references and curve weight management. But the most drastic change comes in the heart of the car. For the first time in his career, Hamilton does not drive with a Mercedes engine. Ferrari's propeller offers a power delivery and a very different regenerative braking response to which the British has dominated for almost 2 decades. This new configuration forces to rethink its pilot style, from the accelerator modulation to the management of the energy in the race. The SF25 philosophy has not facilitated the process either. Ferrari decided to redesign 99% of the car with respect to SF24, looking for a competitive leap that, until now, has not materialized as expected. The car suffers to extract the maximum performance of new tires, which penalizes especially in classification, and the lift and coast strategy adopted to optimize fuel consumption and brake temperature has limited the career attack potential. In addition, the behavior of the car with height changes. The height ride has become a headache since the disqualification of Hamilton in a previous race for breaching technical regulations. This has led the team to be more conservative with the configuration, sacrificing speed for regulatory security. Ferrari's decision to grant Hamilton unilateral control over the extension of his contract until 2027 is not a simple gesture of trust. It is a movement that can reconfigure the political and sports board of Formula One in the coming years. In a sport where contractual stability usually depends on the immediate results, granting a pilot such a power means that Maranello has prioritized the continuity of his project above any other factor, even above the strategic flexibility that elite teams have always protected. For Ferrari, this clause is an unavoidable commitment. If Hamilton decides to continue, the team will not be able to open the door to another pilot, which could block opportunities for emerging talents or prevent strategic signings. In a hypothetical scenario, if in 2026 Ferrari met a competitive car but with an individual Hamilton performance below expected, they could not react with a change of alignment to maximize results. Similarly, if the British experiences a substantial improvement and is again in the fight for the title, this clause would ensure that the team does not lose its most valuable asset for an internal dispute or an external offer. At the internal dynamic level, this situation opens a greater challenge: prolonged coexistence between Hamilton and Leclerc. Monegasco is Ferrari's established figure for years, with a long-term contract and the support of a good part of the technical structure. Maintaining harmony in an environment where one of the pilots has superior contractual control could generate subtle but persistent tensions. Any strategic decision, from the evolutions of the car to the priorities in the race, could be interpreted through that prism of asymmetric power. In Formula One, perception matters as much as reality, and the feeling that a pilot is armored can condition the internal and moral relations of the team. In the pilot market, the impact would also be significant. Other competitors, both teams and pilots, will carefully observe how Ferrari manages this contractual model. If the bet works and Hamilton takes the team to the top, it would not be strange for other shields to imitate this formula to attract figures of great media and technical weight. But if the results do not accompany, this clause will become a case study on the risks of giving too much power to a pilot, and will serve as a warning for future agreements. In addition, the fact that a contract of this caliber has leaked to the Italian press adds a media component. Each performance of Hamilton, good or bad, will be analyzed under the magnifying glass of that clause, amplifying the pressure on the British and on Ferrari. In the global context of the F1, this movement fits into a broader trend towards long-term contracts and unusual shields. Max Verstappen already signed with Red Bull until 2028 with performance clauses. Lando Norris has an extended commitment to McLaren without easy output options. And now Hamilton takes this dynamic to a new level by investing the traditional hierarchy. This could mark the beginning of an era in which first-level pilots negotiate not only great salaries and technical guarantees, but also direct control over their continuity, something that was historically reserved for the team. The magnitude of this change cannot be underestimated. On the one hand, Hamilton ensures a stable work environment, without the fear that a difficult season can mean the abrupt end of its cycle with the Scuderia. This allows you to plan your adaptation with a longer horizon, and gives you the freedom to focus on building a project tailored, something that very few pilots have had the opportunity to do. On the other hand, for Ferrari implies a firm commitment to continue investing in a pilot even on the most adverse scenario, which forces the organization to sustain the technical, budgetary and human effort to support it throughout the period that he decides to remain. The inevitable conclusion is that this clause represents both an opportunity and a risk. If Hamilton manages to fully adapt to SF25 and his successors, and Ferrari manages to give him a car capable of winning, contractual stability could become the pillar of a new golden era in Maranello. A cycle in which the experience and ability of the British, combined with our aligned technical team, returns to the Scuderia to the place that its history demands. But if the difficulties persist and the results do not arrive, this same clause could become a bond that prevents the team from reacting with the necessary rapidity in such a dynamic championship.